How's it going, guys? Happy Thursday. So, today we're going to go back to order of operations, PEMDAS, and talk about solving equations and the general properties. All right, so these properties are pretty important because they will be on the Hawks. It's nice to know the general idea of them. Um, Before we get into all that, though, let's talk about like an algebraic expression. It's an expression built up from constants, variables, and algebraic operations. The different components of an expression are called its factors. A variable is a symbol for an unknown value. We usually use letters such as x as a variable. Coefficients are the numbers that are attached to variables. Constant is a number on its own, and the term is either a variable, constant, or a group of variables and constants multiplied together. Terms are separated by addition or subtraction in expressions. So for this first one, what I would like to do is just go through and we'll talk about variables, coefficients, constants, terms, factors. All right, so variables in this case are x and y. Okay, so those are the ones that I see letters for. 2, my coefficients. All right, my coefficient, this is one term because there's a subtraction sign here, so that separates that. So my coefficients are the ones that go in front of the variables. In this case, it's just 6. The numbers in front of the variables, and that one's just 6. Constants, you're not always going to have one, but you might. It's a number by itself. In this case, it would be -1. All right, again, these are separated by a subtraction sign. That's how you know it's a different term. Your terms, so what I just said, one term is the green one, the other term is -1. And lastly, your factors. Okay, this is really just for one question on the Hawks. We're going to ignore the -1 for now, but say they just gave you that 6x to the 7th, y to the 6th. Your factors, you break it into parts. So I would say 6, x to the 7th, y to the 6th. Again, that's just for Hawks. I wanted to throw that in there. Otherwise, we're just going to do the 4 main components. All right, so next one, variables. I see x, y, and z. My coefficients are what's in front, so I have a 3, a -6, and a -5. Your constants, again, you might not have any. There's no number that's just by itself, so I'm going to say none. And this one, the terms are a little bit harder. All right, so your terms, 3x squared is 1. This whole thing, if you're multiplying, right, we're multiplying, that's a term. And this is your last term. All right. Next problem, variables. I see x, y, and z again. My coefficients. Okay, if you see something out in front of a square root sign, this is one whole term. So the -5 would be a coefficient, and also the 7/3. My constants, there's none. Right, we put a line, zero the line through it because there's no number that's just by itself. And lastly, terms. Okay, one term is that whole square root because we're multiplying right here. If you're multiplying, it still continues the term, and then it's separated by a plus sign. So then I would say 7/3 y is the other term. All right, so that's variables, coefficients, constants, and terms, and factors was included in just the first one. All right, so now simplifying, okay, order of operations. Everybody knows PEMDAS. Okay, parentheses comes first, and then you have exponents. I'm going to say square roots as well. This goes in this part. Multiplication and division, you work left to right. Do not forget that. They're on the same level. It's the same way with addition and subtraction. We go left to right. Okay, so with that being said, before we dive into that, I want to talk about the properties. All right, so if you see identity property, of addition. It's just going to be an example, would be like 1 plus 0 equals 1. If you see the multiplication property, it's the identity property. Anything times 1 is going to equal itself. So 3 times 1 equals 3. Inverse property. If I had 3, now I'm going to do the inverse of 3, which would be negative 3. I should get 0. Same with multiplication inverse property. This one's a big one. So if I had like 3x plus 2, and I said times 1 over 3x plus 2, you're going to get 1. Okay, because like you're dividing by the same thing. This is just an example. Commutative properties, be careful on this, but if I had like x plus 2 plus x plus 3, then x plus 3 plus x plus 2. I just switched the order there, guys. That's all you do on those. Same way with multiplication. You just switch the order. Okay, so that's commutative property. Associative property is a little bit harder because they might throw something like this at you. Now, it doesn't matter which one I add first, so I would say 3x plus 2x plus 3. So it's going to change what they put the parentheses around. So be careful of that. It's the same with multiplication. They're just going to change what they put the parentheses around. Distributive property might be something like this. Okay, I would distribute, and we'll talk about properties later on of exponents, but that's an extreme example. Just make sure you distribute it to both of those. Zero factor property, you will see this on the Hawks, guys. It's going to say like if x plus 2 equals 0 and x minus 3 equals 0, then x plus 2 times x minus 3 is going to equal 0. Okay? So just be careful of that. The last thing we're going to do today, we're going to talk about simplifying expressions. They will be this complicated, so you have to make sure you follow your order of operations. So the first thing I want to do is parentheses. All right, so I have negative 5 inside parentheses. It's simplified. Now I go to exponents. Negative 5 squared. Make sure you type it how you see it. Parentheses, negative 5, parentheses, squared. All right, so now I'm going to rewrite it. Plus 25. Okay, moving on. I would do multiplication division. If there's multiple things in multiplication division, you work left to right. So I would do negative 6. I would multiply first, and then I would divide by 8. All right, and then lastly, you would just add them all together left to right and get your answer. I'm going to get my calculator out to actually even do this one. So my answer would be 26.875. And then you should be able to convert that to a fraction. Should be 215 over 8, I would think. Okay, just make sure you double check that. B, we walk through this one. First step, parentheses, but there's a parenthesis inside one, so I'm going to do that one first. So we're at the top. And yes, they are this difficult. You will have fractions. Okay, keep going in your parentheses. I got to do the division first. 7 minus 5/7. Now we're going to go to multiplication. So I have 3 plus 35 minus 2 over negative 44 over 7. Keep going. I'm going to add the top. And then you would do keep, change, flip here. So keep, change, flip, the top I keep. So 36. Change it from division, the fraction, aka, to multiplication. And then flip the bottom one. If it's ever just a number by itself, it's always over 1. Again, you could probably simplify it. You will have to. 126 over negative 22. I just keep dividing by 2. 63 over negative 11. All right. And again, the problems will be that hard. Make sure you follow your order of operations. You probably will get a bunch of fractions on the hogs. Okay, last two examples. It says evaluate the following. This one, they just want you to simplify as much as you can with pi. So it'll say write the answer in terms of pi. So we're going to go through this. Negative 6 squared. You're not going to use the negative because it's not in parentheses. So I would just use 6 squared and then apply the negative to it. I got to do what's inside here first, and then I'll square root it. So I would do 7 times 2 plus 2, which is 16. So I'm taking the square root of 16. And I'm subtracting 3 pi. All right, so I would take negative 36 plus 2 times 4 minus 3 pi. 2 times 4 comes next. Negative 36 plus 8 would be negative 28 minus 3 pi. That would be your answer because you're writing it in terms of pi. The last one, they'll tell you to plug in something. So I'm going to plug in 22 for x. So I'm going to rewrite the problem. 22 plus 3. I'm going to plug in 2 for y. So I put parentheses around it and plug it in. Negative 8 square root of 25 minus 2 times 8. This is negative 8 times 5 minus 2 times 8. This is negative 40 minus 16, so you get negative 56. Your calculator should help you with a lot of this, guys. I know this is tough, following the order of operations, because they throw some tough ones at you. If you have any questions on the Hawks, please let me know, but that will be your assignment.